Okay, thank you. Little background about myself and turning. I've been started turning in 2006. And the first thing I turned, other than some pens, when I got a little jet mini lathe, I took a course at Woodcraft with Bob Larson, who was a member of this club and some other clubs as well, Dallas Club, and I'm not sure about Fort Worth, but so many of you I know Bob, and he taught these classes down there. The first class that I took a couple of classes from, but the first class was on doing segmented bowls. I thought it sounded interesting. June said I should take it, so I took it, and it was just a little bowl. I think there were 4 layers, maybe and probably 8 pieces going around, segments. And he had cut everything out beforehand, so it made it real easy. But one of the things that he said you should put everything together with CA glue. And I think he said that not because it's easier, because it's certainly not, but he thought it would just be quicker. But it's since then, I think I tried one at home, and I said, this is not the right way of doing it. And so I switched to Titebond original glue. And it's probably faster than using CA glue for putting these things together, since you don't make mistakes. The first time you put it together, it'll stay together and it'll be correct. So tonight I'm going to be showing you how I put glue the cut up segments together into rings, and how I glue up all the segments to make a lid for my box, and how I glue the pieces on to a piece in progress. A lot of people making segmented bowls and boxes cut all their rings or make all their rings, and then they glue them all up at one point, one stack, using clamps. First time I started doing these things, I decided that wasn't the best way to do it for me. It's probably quick, but I was concerned, among other things, about making sure that all these lines line up just right, the segments lined up just right, and I felt that doing it that way is a little harder to do that. But more importantly, depending on the shape of your bowl or box, and the ones I'm doing tonight, it curves in at the top, so the opening is kind of small. And to turn the inside of a bowl like that or a box like that becomes rather difficult to get a good clean finish. It's more like doing a hollow form. And for those of you doing hollow forms, you know it's pretty hard to get a really good finish on the inside unless you can get a bowl gouge in there or a gouge in there. And that's why a lot of people do hollow forms, they paint the inside black, and so you can't see it. And I like to have a nice clean finish. So what I've done on this piece here, I've glued up the first 4 layers, and then I turned the inside. And it's basically finished turned and sanded to 320, so that it's smooth, and it's approximately the way it will be when I'm finished. As I add more layers, I'll have to turn those, and I'll show you how I do that. But then you may have to do some adjustment to make it all fit right. But the bottom part is all turned, and it won't be returned. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I add rings to an item like this. As you see, the outside is turned, and the only thing I have to do here is face off the surface here, so that it's very smooth and true. So let me do that. one thing I... Yes.
How do you assure yourself that you are perpendicular to the, I'll say, the center of that bowl and not beveled in or out, or is it strictly eyeball?
One thing I forgot to bring was a straight edge. But basically, I'd put a straight edge across here and check it. And I always forget to bring something. But then after I've turned it, and I think it's right, I'm going to take a sanding stick, and I'm going to go across it as insurance. So I'm going to do that now. And that's just 80 grit sandpaper. And I'll look at it, and it appears to be that everything is sanded, so it must be flat. But I always forget to bring something, and I didn't bring a straight edge. Okay, now what I have to do, I make up the rings, and I'm going to show you next how I do the rings. But after I make up the ring, glue it all together, I sand one side of it flat. What I have is a drum sander, and I can just feed it through. If you don't have that, belt sander works pretty good. A fairly wide belt sander, and you can put it on and just kind of move it around a little bit like that on the belt sander as it's running, and you flatten it out pretty good. You just want to make sure that it's flat, that all the joints are smooth. If you don't have either one, you can glue some 80 grit sandpaper down to a flat surface and do it by hand. But now I'm going to glue this on, and this is the first piece. The walnut piece here is the largest diameter, so at this point it's going to start getting a little smaller. So I just need to put glue pretty much around the outside. Normally, in gluing things, I put glue on both surfaces, but in this case, I really don't have to, because I'm going to smear it around well enough so that everything is covered. And as I say, tight bond, the original tight bond holds very good, very fast. And I'll demonstrate that more later, but you get to a point where you can't turn it. So what I'm doing now is I'm going around and I'm making sure that all these points here line up with the one over here, and then they're halfway in between the other ones. So it's a matter of just doing it visually. If it looks good by eye, that's good enough for me. I have 10 segments in a ring.
Can you talk a little bit how you cut them?
Yeah, I'll do that in a second. But what I'll do here is I'll clamp this up and wipe off anything that oozes out. Cutting of the segments, I've got a video on YouTube that's, I think, referenced in the newsletter, but it goes through the whole procedure pretty carefully. It's about a total of 47-minute video in 5 parts, showing everything from cutting, the original cutting, right to finishing the bowl with varnish. But this is a diagram of the bowl I'm making here, and I also provided a cutting chart In this case, the pieces here, they're all 3/4 inch maple or walnut. The cutting summary chart comes off a computer, but it tells you how much wood you need, basically, for each ring. The first step is ripping the boards down to the width you need. For example, the boards have various widths from 7/8 of an inch, which is the walnut. So those are pretty narrow pieces because there's not much of a curvature there. It's flat. To 2 1/8 or 2 1/32. In fact, it is 2 9/32. So at some points, the boards have to be wider because you have a lot of curvature, and so a lot of it gets knocked off here and on the inside. So you have wider boards. Smaller the circle. Yeah, in a way, but depends on the shape. If you're going through a shape, it's a little hard to explain. But you cut the boards into strips, and then I have basically a sled that I put on my table saw, and I cut the segments. The segments in this case all have an 18-degree miter angle on each end. I'll pull some off here. This is a segments. This is a piece of segment from the next ring after this, which is a smaller ring than this. So the segments are identical for a ring, and all the segments for the whole project, since you have 10 segments per ring, all have 18 degrees on either end. The sled I use is a Rockler sled, and I like it very much because it has an adjustable arm on it, and it has the scale is out at the end, near the end of the arm, so a 1 degree increment is probably about 1/4 of an inch, and you can set this thing up very, very accurately to almost any angle you want, up to 45 degrees, from 0 to 45 degrees. It also has a drop-off platform so that as you're cutting the wood, it just drops off. It doesn't drop off the piece. It's just uniform with it. So I like it very much. This normally, I let this dry for 2 or 3 minutes while I read a book or do something else. But in this case, while this is drying, Craig, where's Craig? He was here. Did he go? He had to leave early. Well, I was going to ask Craig to talk a little bit about the Beads of Courage program. Instead, I will. The Beads of Courage program provides beads signifying various medical procedures for children in major hospitals undergoing major treatments, such as cancer or other types of treatments where they're likely to have hundreds, if not thousands, of treatments over a period of a year. Anything from having your some blood drawn to check something, or to having a radiation treatment or chemo or any other treatment. They all have a separate bead for that. Well, the question, what do the kids do with all these beads? They all have a hole in so the kids can string them up into necklaces. But the thoughts were that if they had a box to put them in, this would be very nice for the kids and for the parents too, as a keepsake. So the Beads of Courage program, the clubs provide boxes for these. Dallas started it about 3 years ago, I think, and I think last year we made about 50 boxes. Some of the other clubs are also making quite a few boxes. The reason I'm doing this demo is not to show you that I can turn or make segmented boxes, but to encourage you to go home to your shop and make some boxes for the Beads of Courage. These are some of the boxes I made actually several years ago. I passed this around. They're similar to what I'm making now, but the shape is a little bit different. This year they suggested I make it a little bit bigger, so I increased the diameter and changed the shape of it so that they'll hold more beads.
What size do they recommend making?
6-inch to 8-inch diameter, and you know, 4, 5, 6 inches high. Most people make their boxes with straight edges, so they make all the rings identical, and they use a flat piece of flat wood cut into a circle for the, or turned into a circle for the top, and a similar piece for the bottom. So it's a straight box. I decided when I started making these, I thought I could make it a little bit more decorative. So I didn't want to have a straight side, so I made it, as you see the shape there. This is more representative of the shape I'm making this year. It's easy to make a group of them at a time. So I'm making 5 right now of these boxes, and this is complete except for the lid, which I'll do tonight. In fact, I could pass this one around so you can just get an idea of where we're at this point. But the boxes are, they're very nice. The original ones, the picture they're going around, I used to make a top with a hole in it for 2 reasons. One, kids could just drop the bead through the hole. And second, it was an easy way to pick up a lid. You put your finger in and pull out the hole, pull out the bead, pull out the cover. But they told me they're making the bead so big today that you need a pretty big hole. So now I'm putting a knob on the top of the lid. Anyway, this is glued. This has been gluing up long enough, plenty long enough. So what we can dispense with this, and the only thing I'm going to do at this point, if there's any glue coming out on the inside, I want to wipe that off at this point, because a little later I'm going to be turning this. And I want to show you then how I glue up the segments. I brought my table. You can use your kitchen counter, but don't let your wife catch you doing it. So these are the pieces that I have set for to glue it up into a ring, and there should be enough here for a full ring. Doesn't make any difference how you put them together. But we'll put together 2 semicircles to make the ring. Most people, or the way I started doing this, and the way I show in the video that I have on YouTube, is I glue them all together and into a 360-degree ring and put a clamp around it to hold it, and then let it dry. But I was looking at a video by Malcolm Tibbetts, and he showed how he does it, and he just rubs them together, and they stick fine. It was hard to believe, but that's the way I'm going to do it. And I found it works really good this way. So I put a little glue on one piece, and I take the 2 pieces, and I make sure that the glue is coated really well, and I put them down on the table, and I rub them And basically, that's glued together pretty good at this point. No, I don't. On the melamine, it doesn't stick all that much. I don't let it set very long. But, I mean, that piece is glued together. I could probably pull it apart now, but after a minute, I doubt if I could. So I'm just going to continue doing that. And I find this to be a very quick way of making these segments, making the rings. No, they're not numbered. Doesn't make any difference. Huh? They're all the same. But it goes very quick doing this way. And with a tight bond, I've never had a glue joint fail. Pardon? Tight Bond is a brand. It's the best known brand of wood glue. They have Tight Bond Original, Tight Bond 2, Tight Bond 3. I use the original. Mainly because it's the one that has the fastest tack time. And for me doing this, speed is important. Some of the others are more waterproof than this, but that's not important for these boxes. You do have to clean your table off occasionally. So with this, no. After I cut them, no, no, I don't. My blade leaves a really, really fine, fine edge. In fact, here's an extra one. I'll pass this one around. I just use a carbide blade. I think it's about 40 tooth. I don't think it makes any difference. As long as it's fairly sharp. Now, in your cutting of the pieces, cutting of the segments, as I say, this was 18 degrees. The angle is really, really, really important. You can't mess around. If you're off by a tenth of a degree on each end, and you have 10 segments, you're talking about possibility of what, 2 degrees error? And 2 degrees is a lot to make up. But you can do it. But it's good to get it so that you have no error. What most people do is when they cut the segments, they cut a trial set and they glue them up just the way I have here. And then they take them and they see how it is to make a circle. Now you can see these have, it's almost perfect. It may be off. There may be a slight area in here, but I can't see it at this point. And you can come up and take a look at it. But it's very, very close. Even so, what I do is after these dry, I take them over to a disc sander that's set up in my shop and has a table, and the table is square to the sanding disc. And I just touch it lightly against the sanding disc, both of them. And that if there's any error in it, it just takes it out, so that when they go together, there is no problem. But these are good enough. I could glue these together into a ring at this point without doing that.
Dick, do you put a clamp around that thin
No, never. I don't use clamps at all. I'll let these dry a little bit more, and I can pass them around. You can try it for yourself, see how they go. But why don't I do another set? This is a set of pieces that is going to be the lid for the box. After it's glued together, it's going to be like this. I can pass this around too. So let me glue these together. It's a little trickier doing this, I found, because the pieces want to slip sometimes. But I'm going to go ahead and do that anyway.
Is that 10 segments also?
Pardon?
10 segments also?
10 segments, yes. It's also same angle, exactly the same. And I do it exactly the same. It's just that when we're gluing them all together, they want to slip a little bit. But I use the same technique. You do want to make sure that both surfaces are covered with glue. And so you're really then gluing the two glued surfaces together rather than just gluing wood together. Again, since it's 10 pieces per ring, you make two sets of 5 for a semicircle.
You get into a bunch of different intricate designs on this.
You know, I really haven't got into that yet. Today I make very few segmented pieces. The only ones I'm really doing now, last couple of years, have been these boxes for beads of courage, and I just don't make them very fancy. This is maple. Mm-hmm. It's a hard maple, so it finishes up very nicely. Now, what I find on these, it's useful to put a rubber band around it, or a couple of rubber bands to hold it. And I haven't tried this yet, but I'm going to put that stick in here too. To try to keep them from slipping and sliding when I do this. I find that near the points, it sometimes separates a little bit. It doesn't stay quite together. I'm not sure why. I haven't figured that out. Yes, it does. It should match the color of the wood. Thank you for asking, John. I hadn't thought of that. See, this one is separated slightly. I think I'm going to take two others instead. I have a few extras of these.
Cutting such small pieces on your table saw, do you
I clamp.
have a problem holding them?
I
while
clamp
you
them.
cut 'em?
I clamp.
So you got some kind of a
I clamp. Yeah, I've got a clamp that.
get your fingers in the saw blade.
No. That's part. It's built into this Rockler sled is a clamping system. So you don't have to have your fingers near the sled, near the wood. You don't have to hold it at all.
Your entire sled then is a rock product?
Rockler, yes. They usually run about $100 on sale. All right, so I'm going to let these dry over here and clean up the table. I'm done with the gluing for now. Shelf, you can get it. It's just a piece of shelving from Lowe's or Home Depot. Uh-huh. But it's better using this than the kitchen counter. Okay, that's good enough. I always lose these little tops for the glue bottles. But that was the time I found it. Okay. Now that piece that I glued up, I could probably turn that at this point, but I'm going to let it sit for a little bit so I don't get any glue on my tools. So the other piece that I sent around, okay, well that's I don't need it yet, but it's still coming around. I am going to now work on the lid. I need the blank. Yeah, they tend to do that. The lid blank, anybody have that? Okay, here it comes. Thank you. Both sides are the same. I can put in either one. Doesn't make much difference. Yeah. It's a PSI Barracuda. It's nice. It comes with 4 sets of jaws. That's the biggest. Now I'm going to start on the underside of the lid, and I want to have it domed up slightly in the middle, and then have a lip on the edge like a tenon. High. And it's just for appearance, you know, pretty little dome recess in the bottom. Now I'm going to need that other bowl. Thank you, Orrin. I have to check the diameter of this and make that to fit tightly. Looks like it's about right. Looks pretty good. Now the trick is to get the size so it fits tightly, but not too tight and not too loose. And when I cut this in, I put a little taper on it. It makes it a little easier for fitting. A little too tight. But since there's a taper on it, I know that it's almost there. A little too tight. If it's too tight, I can't get it off later. I mean, I can, but I mean, it's... If it's too loose, I've got to fill it out with paper or something like that. That'll work. A little too loose, but it's all right. Okay. Now, I just want to finish this and sand it at this point. Try some 220 here. And a little 320. And then the bottom of the lid is done. No, I do the finish. I do the finish later on, and I'll show you what I'll use. Well, I'll show you now while I'm talking about it. I finished these with a wipe-on poly. This was a Minwax wipe-on poly, and I find it's a great product. It's a gloss finish. I put it on 3 coats, and if it's really hot like it has been, you know, it's probably dry in a couple hours between coats. That's all it takes. But I let it go about 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours. Get a little steel wool rubbing it between coats, and just wipe it on with a piece of cloth, and it gives a very nice finish. Very durable finish, and very easy to do. Because I do this on the lathe too, not the lid, but the rest of it, the bowl. So I'm done with the chuck. Put this back on. A little looser than I usually like, but it's all right. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take a little tape. Put some tape on here. Perfect. Okay, I have to bring up a little pressure on it to hold it in place. And then I can turn the outside of this. And I want to turn the lid so it's a continuous curve with the shape of the bowl, so it just goes right over the top. You notice how these things really hold together pretty well. I mean, they're just segments, they're glued, but they still come off as if it was a continuous strip, showing the glue does hold pretty good. So that's just about right. I just have to refine it slightly. And then it's time for sanding. Again, up to 320. before I take it off, I want to tape it on because I still have to do the center part. I don't want it moving. Now, I said there's a video on YouTube that shows everything I do to make these, except at the lid. I didn't show the lid, so I changed the glue up. Right. I use the old style glue up method. Okay, now I can just clean up the center. It's got a tiny hole there, but that's all right because I'm going to drill it out anyway for a knob. And then I can sand that. Take off the tape. No, I usually do a drill press later on because I do it after I finish. It's already have the center mark on it. So just about a quarter of an inch or less. No, I don't. No, that looks kind of tacky. Have it show on the inside. And normally, if that was a real tight fit, at this point, it's still tight enough fit that by the time I put finish on and all that, it might be too tight. So I want to go in here now and just take a little bit off of that. And I'm going to use my scraper here for that. Because I don't really want a tight fit. That's fine. So this is ready for finishing. pass that around. Still got some blue tape on it. I finish a bowl on the lathe. I do with the Minwax, and it takes less than a minute to put each coat on. But I just go in and put the finish on, and then I unscrew it. And so the last thing I do is part it off. And I'll pass around a finished one also. Parting off, had a little problem with this one. I think I parted it off too much and it broke off. So I usually then part them off, part it down to, say, 1/2 inch or more, and then take a saw, maybe 3/4 inch of wood. And take a saw and cut it the rest of the way and then sand it. But that's a finished one right there. Now let me go back to this one that we glued. And I'm going to turn this inside and the outside. One more ring. Yeah, there's one more ring. The one we made. This one here. In fact, I'll pass this one around. You can see how that comes together. The two sides. Beads of Courage. You get those from Beads of Courage. Your coordinator, whoever deals with Beads of Courage. We have one guy in Dallas who deals with them. Plus, of course, Craig is a big he works with them also. But Beads of Courage will provide those to us. The little ceramic piece that's on the top of the one I'm sending around now, it says Beads of Courage on it. So they will provide those. They provide us with about 100 of them or something. And
What method do you use to put those words on? Are you just doing that with wood burning? The pictures you have?
the picture. No, that was laser engraved.
Oh, okay.
There's a guy in Fort Worth that I use, Dave Marshall. So I've used him for the past, I guess, 3 years. I designed that pattern. I send him the picture of it, and then I collect a bunch of these, like five lids, and I send them over, and he'll put them on his laser engraver and engrave them for me. But I'm not doing it this year. I'm using the knobs like on the one that's sent around. Making those knobs is a separate thing. That happens to be Indian rosewood. It was a pretty hard wood. But I had a piece of it, and so it was long enough. I think I made 8 knobs. So I'll probably go back and make a few more of these while I have those knobs all made. Yes?
On the lid, you didn't seem to do the half-frame technique with it.
Yeah, I did. The half ring. They're around here someplace.
Okay.
Here's one half ring. I got the other one over here. It's probably more important on the lids because I'll send this one around. You can see that because they slide a little bit and they're not. Those will definitely need sanding. They're right angles, but there's a little unevenness from one side to the other because it wants to slide. Okay, I'm going to turn this piece here. Remember, this is the one we glued up a little while ago. The glue has been set far long enough. Usually I allow about 15 minutes for it to totally set up before I turn it down and add the next ring on. don't think so. It doesn't feel, yeah, I know. It doesn't feel loose, though. I don't know why.
You ever try to bring up potato stock? Is it in a situation like that?
No, because I'm going to the inside, too, and I can't use it. It's not enough. It's maybe because I've taken kind of a heavy cut. My finished cuts are going to be very light, and it's not going to do that at all. For the inside, I have to come around and do it from the front. Except I can't start the darn thing then. I'm going to use a hollowing tool, just because I can no longer get a bowl gouge in here to cut this because of the angles. And when I put the next one on, it'll be even worse. This is a Trent Bosch tool. Works very nicely. But it's because of the shape of these, the shape of my bowls, because they come in at the top so much. The reason that I turn the first 4 rings and finish those off, because I can no longer get a bowl gouge in to do that.
You turn these after every ring now, or do you put?
Yeah, now I do after every ring, at least rough turn it, right. Okay, that's about as far as I'll go with that. And then I've got a nice heavy scraper that I use, and that takes a little finer cut. I don't have one. No, I don't. But this one works good. And I always put a reverse bevel on my scrapers, on all of them. It eliminates the possibility of getting the catch. which seems to be what a lot of people have problems with scrapers, especially on doing the inside of bowls. Is getting catches, so. A lot of people don't do that, but I kind of like that. That's pretty good. It's not ready for sanding on it. But what I'm going to do, and then I have to face this off and put the next ring on. So I do the outside last, and just because the leave a little extra wood on the outside to keep it a little stiffer. And then after I get everything in, then I decide on the shape of the outside, and I try to make it a pleasing shape. One thing on this particular design, you get down to about here, and you have to watch your wall thickness. It can easily, because the inside shape and the outside shape are not going to be the same. At least not for me, they're not. Because the bottom is coming in and it's curving around to a flat bottom, whereas the inside here is the outside. You see the one I sent around come down and it kind of flares out towards the base. So at this point here, it tends to get a little thin, which is okay. I've never gone through. So that's about it, other than sanding and putting the next ring on, and then finishing the outside shape, which is just plain old outside bowl turning. That's about done. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay, thank you. Size of what? To get the size of the block. Complete segment, right. Right. How do I determine the size?
Ring 1, 2, and 3. How do you know how much difference to make the rings?
On the
length of your cut.
right. We get a diagram here. We have a diagram, and my computer program gives me this diagram. It's called Wood Turner Pro, is the one I use. And I give the diagram, and I watch these lines throughout here and try to give them. Those are going to be the shape, more or less, of my final bowl, with ample wood I can take away. So the shape of the bowl and the thickness, what I said here, about ½ an inch, typically, then determines the length of each, the width of each segment. And the computer calculates then how long that segment is going to be. Let me pass this around. It may make sense to you if you look at it. It's also in the handout that's posted on the site, on the Golden Triangle website. You can figure it out yourself too. Yeah, it's a lot more. Yeah, there are. Right. But I decided to buy this software, and it makes it really easy. Wood Turner Pro, it's called. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.